Welcome to The Good Pod, where today we'll be talking The Good Wife, Season 1, Episode 5, Crash. I am one of your hosts, Jason Reed. With me, as always, my co-host, Marissa Garza. Marissa, before we get started, I just want to, this is a very train-heavy episode. When was the last time you took a train?
I don't recall.
Okay. How about when was the last time how was your experience last time you were on a train?
I don't recall.
Okay. Do you remember where you went?
I don't recall. I don't recall.
Oh my gosh. You don't recall anything.
I don't recall anything.
I don't recall.
But I do recall being on this podcast with you, and I am happy to be here. This was a fun episode. It had a lot of different elements. I know last episode we talked a lot about that. It was like basically the court case and Peter, and here we got a little bit of Kalinda mixed in there, and we got some more family stuff. So I thought this was a pretty well-rounded episode. What about you?
There were a lot of moving parts. We didn't just have an A/B plot; we had an A, B, and C plot. So there was a lot going on. A lot of technical jargon that I'm going to be honest with you all. A lot of times I did not follow. I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, what is that?"
I don't know trains.
But
we are not train experts.
We're not train people. We don't know anything about the workings of a train.
Nope.
We have talked about a certain train magnate
Yes.
on another show. Talked about a railroad zaddy over on the Gilded Age.
Yes.
But as far as how trains work, we don't know. Anyway, yeah. Listen, we're here to talk about this train-tastic episode, and we also want to talk about some of the free and easy ways you can help this podcast out. There are multiple ways, no matter how you're listening or viewing this podcast. If you're listening on a podcast catcher like an Apple Podcast or Spotify, you can always rate us. If you're on Apple Podcasts, you can also leave us a written review. We'd really appreciate hearing what you like about the show, leaving us 5 stars, and interacting with you in that way. We'll definitely shout you out on the podcast if you leave us a written review. Also on YouTube, you can also leave us YouTube comments. You can give us a thumbs up down here somewhere. Let us know you're enjoying the pod. You can also send us an email at thegoodpodfeedback@gmail.com with any questions, comments, or feedback, and we'll definitely shout you out here on the podcast when you leave that as well. And don't forget to subscribe on any of those platforms. That's either a subscribe button, a follow button, whatever your podcast player of choice offers. We would love if you would follow this podcast in that way. This week's sponsor. Listen, this was the time. This was a weird time of train movies, train TV. So this week's sponsor, they knew we were doing this episode, so they decided they wanted to get, it's an old movie. It's the movie Unstoppable, featuring Denzel Washington and Chris Pine. It is a movie about a runaway train. Listen, they told me to say this. It's a runaway hit.
Whoa!
Sorry, they made me. Listen, I looked when they reached out.
Yeah.
I looked into this movie.
Yeah.
It's directed by Tony Scott.
What?
Who also, famous of the brothers Ridley and Tony Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah, the brothers Scott, who weirdly are the directors of a lot of The Good Wife throughout its run. So that was weird. I was like, oh, just so happens that a runaway train movie premieres just a little bit over a year after this episode comes out. Coincidence? I don't know.
Okay, it's not.
I'll leave it up to the viewers to decide.
It's not a bad game plan. Like, you have your little sandbox that you can like test things out in, and then you're like, hey, look, well, let's just make this into a movie. I think it works.
Tony's like, this is a good premise right here that I like.
Yeah.
Runaway train, I think I could probably do something with this. Maybe make a nice little movie. Maybe we get Denzel in it. We get Chris Pine, who in 2009 is a real up-and-comer. I think maybe this was around Star Trek time. I don't remember. I don't really recall too much. We'll actually talk a little bit more about some Star Trek going on a little later. Spoiler alert. But, can't be a coincidence, right? He's just like, this is, I'm actually going to take this and turn this to a Hollywood project. Ridley, you stay here. I'm gonna do this on my own. Tony's like, I'm gonna take this as my own little project.
Well,
but yeah,
thanks.
Unstoppable, you folks. Washington doing Denzel Washington things, being a hero as always.
Well, much like the movie, we are also unstoppable in our coverage of The Good Fight.
That was a good one, Marissa. I really like applause for you for that one. I really like that little extension of the bit.
I really commit. I commit to the bit. Well, Jason, do we want to talk about the case of the week in this?
Yeah, let's get into the case. Let's talk.
All right. So, as you mentioned, this case is about trains. We're talking about trains a lot in this episode. This case is apparently a case that the firm has been working on for a while. They've been looking to get a settlement. There was a crash, and 3 widows of people who died in this crash, people who worked for the train company, are looking for a settlement because their husbands died. And rightfully so. I think, you die on the job. you probably should get compensated for it in some way. The train, just the singular train, the train company is represented by Patty, and she is a fun little addition into the greater ensemble of The Good Wife. I think she does reappear a couple of times throughout the run, but she sees Will's drama and like also matches Will's drama during this whole thing. Will's sitting in a conference room. She's like, "Well, I'd love to, get a settlement before they do 60 minutes." And she's like, watching Will is like watching a Shakespeare play. Like it's there. And later she
Yeah.
has her own ways of matching that drama. So they're fun to see put up against each other.
Yeah, Patty is quite a formidable foe, if I recall correctly, throughout our tenure in The Good Wife. I want to say that she appears pregnant multiple times throughout The Good Wife. I feel like that's kind of her shtick when we see her. She's
Yeah.
pregnant. I feel like I do remember Patty. She sticks out in my mind as someone that has been that is around the universe a few different times. She's part of our revolving cast of opposing counsel.
Yes. Yeah. And she's played by Martha Plimpton, who you may recognize from The Goonies. If you don't recognize her from The Goonies, you can pause this podcast to go watch The Goonies. Like it is
Uh,
a must watch.
okay,
Bye, Jason.
Marissa,
I'll
I'll
do the
see you
pod on my
later.
own. Yep, it's fine. What do you mean you've not watched The Goonies?
It's something that has like it's this kind of flown past me. It's not something I've ever listen. You would be shocked and surprised to learn the number of iconic movies I have never seen.
Well, that's a project for another day.
I was a very sheltered child, so I was not
I
allowed to
mean,
watch certain movies
everyone has
and
their
see certain things.
It's okay.
So
I don't mean to
you'd be
be that
shocked.
harsh, but it is a generational, like, I feel like part of your soul will become unlocked
Wow,
when you watch The
it's,
Goonies. It's just like
it's an
such a
important
like
movie.
a foundational pop culture situation.
I'm going to remedy that as soon as we get off this podcast. Next good pod episode you guys will see will be a spontaneous review of the Goonies.
I do it. She also has shown up in ER, The Real O'Neills, and Raising Hope.
Raising Hope was my big Martha
Yeah.
Plimpton like exposure. I loved her in that show. That show was a gem. If you've never seen Raising Hope, it's such a funny. It's made by the same people that did My Name Is Earl. So if you
Yes.
it's in that kind of realm of comedy. Raising Hope was a very fun and funny show, very heartwarming show at times as well. The Real O'Neills also was one that I was a fan of. That was a nice, fun little show. It didn't last very long, but it was a nice, fun little show. But I was a Martha Plimpton fan later in life. I watched ER, but I wasn't like hardcore ER fan. I don't remember who she was on ER. Like I don't
She
recall
was
her
only
being
there
on
for a little
ER.
bit. She wasn't a mainstay,
Right.
but I feel
So
like
like
Martha makes her mark every time she's somewhere, you
oh, for
know?
sure. She's definitely memorable. The character she plays in Raising Hope is a hoot and a half, and it's such a fun role for her. And she's a very versatile actress. You can see throughout these different things she's done.
Well, and I even think within her arc within The Good Wife, I remember a couple of episodes where she really like surprised me with some sentiment that we do not see in this episode,
Mhm.
but she brings some human elements to the character of Patty. Well, both sides are wanting to stay out of trial. They do not want to have a trial. So they put a first offer on the table, and it is to pay the pension for 10 years, but only 80 cents on the dollar. So corporations are doing corporate things and trying to get away with at least the least amount of money for the least amount of accountability. And this does not sit well with the wives and widows of the people who died in the train crash. And Will's kind of here we kind of see Will's humanity come forward because he has to go in and talk to these wives and say like, "Hey, this is what I got. I'm going to keep trying to do some things. This is pretty much I think as good as we're going to get." And one of the wives is like, "So you gave up on us?" And he's like, "Look, I will believe that your husbands were overworked and that caused them to not be able to operate trains properly, and that's why they died. But the train company can prove that the train was moving too fast, and I can't prove that the company
Mhm.
overworked your husbands. So this is the best that we've got right now." Is a really like somber moment for me watching that. It's at the top of the episode, just kind of getting that window into Will.
Yeah, and I think it's also kind of a real world problem, like not just on this, on this show. Like it's a real thing about train conductors and train
Yeah.
operations. Same thing as like a truck driving operation, right? Because these people are up for 12 hours at a time, maybe sometimes even longer operating these trains. That's why like they say it also about, there are people in the medical field that have these long hours, or people in, law enforcement have these long hours. I'm always curious as like why do people think that's a good idea to keep these people that are vital to our system working, keeping them up so many hours a day. I'm sure there's other people you can hire that you can stretch out this work a little bit, but that's the pretty much the main argument here is that these men, the train crashed because they were inattentive. They were tired from working so many long hours that they didn't do what was necessary to make sure the train was operating at a safe speed, which that will evolve over the time of this episode.
Yeah, as someone who lives next to a train, it's something I think about a lot because the trains
I
are
can literally
going
see the
all
train.
the time.
When you have your shades open, I can literally see the train out your window.
Yeah.
We're podcasting sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's like right there. And I know even just a couple years ago there could have been a union or a strike, a railroad strike, because they were fighting for not having to work overtime and stuff like that. So this is,
Mhm.
and I think it's even something, it is something that comes up in the Gilded Age at the start of
Yes.
railroads. So it is
Yes.
something that has always been a part of railroad culture, unfortunately, is the fact that people are overworked in order to run them. So Will goes in and talks to these wives and is like, hey, this is the best we can do. And like, it's a really hard because one wife is like, yeah, I need the money, I think we should take it. Other wives are like, no, this isn't right, but if it's all we can get, I want to get an apology. And
Mhm.
was like, that I don't think that's going to happen, but I'll see what I can do. And
Yeah, I like this line of like the money is the apology. Like
yes,
in their eyes, that is the apology.
yeah, like that is the best that you're going to get from them. One of the wives had come with a bunch of overtime memos and asks Alicia, like, hey, do you still want these memos? She's like, yeah, we're still, we still want everything that we can get to help your case. And this is where Alicia notices that the memo that she just had received from one of the wives does not match the memo that was given in discovery because some names are left off. So this is enough grounds for them to say, like, hey, we were denied discovery. Let's stop. Let's regroup. I, we're going to take the offer off the table.
It just shows how sharp Alicia is, and she can look at this paper and be like, "Oh, this is different from the other random piece of paper that we have floating around." And I'm sure thousands of pieces of paper that we have from this case. Just for her to notice that, like just looking at this paper that she got from the wives, is like so like keen of Alicia to actually have that be able to run in her mind and notice that difference.
Well, and how infuriating does that have to be, though? Because now I think that adds even more color to Alicia's character. Because if she's someone that can notice something like that, the number of names on a memo, how could she not notice that her husband was cheating on her? Like, that would be like the question I think she's asking herself. Like, I understand. Like, I've been in that situation. Like, you don't know, you can, because you're not paying attention to that, you're not looking for that. But she's got such a keen eye, she's able to notice all of these details, and so it's got to be really painful for her to sit there and be like, how did I not see this for so many years
Yeah,
when I can just notice, boom, there's three names not on this list.
I'm sure if Carrie was standing there, Carrie would say some like sly remark like, "Huh, crazy how you can notice that, but can't notice that your husband cheating on you. Weird."
Yeah,
And just like walks out the door. Like I don't know if Carrie would say something like that, but some one of our characters around the Good Wife universe that's like like maybe a DA Matan would say that like, "Huh, weird you didn't see you see that, but couldn't see your husband cheating on you, huh?"
yeah,
And walk out the door.
yeah. So they take it to the Judge Robert Parks. This man is not playing around. He's like, look,
Mm-mm.
we're not gonna, how much time do you need to like really get all the information? Was like a month. He's like, okay, cool. You have 3 days. And Will objects. Is like, okay, now you got 2 days. I really love watching these judges treat these lawyers like children. It's really
I
fun.
mean, you kind of have to, right? Because if you don't, like, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Because that's just how, like, that's how, like, crazy these cases get, where we're bickering back and forth. You have to, because I mean, we're all human. Like, this is if you feel passionately about something, you will bicker like a little child to someone else that's on the opposite side of you. So the judge is there to be like, all right, enough is BS. Like, let's be adults here.
Yeah. Yeah, so the judge gives them 3 days and says, "You have 3 days to prove to me whether there's a case or the case should be dismissed." And that's all you get. So both teams go back and have depositions to try and get information from some of the witnesses that were the names that were left off of that list to get more information. So one of the people they talked to is Mr. Eldridge. He's the systems engineer. He's asked a lot of technical questions, which I'm sure Alicia had help getting, but Alicia learns a lot about trains in
Maybe
this
she,
episode.
maybe she had Zach help her out,
Maybe.
like at home. Like, Zach, tell me everything you know about trains, little boy.
Eldridge's like main answer here is standard upgrade. What about this? Standard upgrade. What about that? Standard upgrade. Like he is not asking or answering or giving up much information here.
It's almost the do not recall. It's
Yes.
just like
Yeah.
standard upgrade, standard upgrade. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure he's like, she wouldn't get it. Like she doesn't understand. This actor is named Derek Cecil. Did you recognize him?
Listen, he definitely had one of those. Like I've definitely seen him in many things, faces. Like I can't tell you what I've seen you in, but I definitely know your face.
Yeah, he was in House of Cards, is where I remember him from, and most recently Lessons in Chemistry on Apple TV. But
I've seen all House of Cards. Who was he in House of Cards?
I think he was like the reporter dude.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, now that you say, I can definitely see that. But I just like I definitely seen him in many a show.
Yeah. So that's one deposition. They also talked to Mr. Merriman. Mr. Merriman is like the corporate guy in this situation. And this is where I thought was interesting because whenever the good wife does this, it's kind of like this is like an analogy or a metaphor for like corporate speaking to America because Will is asking about like why are you paying these people less, and Mr. Merriman is like, well, we're paying them less because there's technology that makes it easier to drive trains, and Will's like, yeah, but it takes the same amount of time for the train to get from point A to point B. He's like, well,
in your face.
Yeah. So, and the last line that this man says is like, "This is America, and you have to work hard to get results. That's what it is." And Patty's like, "Okay, like let's go take a break."
Okay, boomer.
Yeah. Very big boomer energy here. The other person we talked to is Miss Connolly. She is asked about these overtime records, and she is like, literally, you could tell she was given, say, I don't recall to every single question. And Alicia catches her on it because this woman sounds like a robot. She's like, I don't recall. I don't recall. I don't recall. Do you have a husband? I don't recall.
Listen, do you have a husband is going to come up later.
Yeah. So these three people are the main points that Will and Alicia are looking into. And meanwhile, the other firm, the firm representing the railroad, is bringing in new evidence because this is basically like new discovery. So they're like, oh, hey, if you're going to interview my people, what about this drug test that shows that one of the husbands was taking amphetamines and was basically on speed? And that could be why he couldn't operate the train correctly. And Alicia wants Kalinda to go investigate, but she's working on something else, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But so Alicia kind of has to work on her own. And the only thing she can think of is like, just bring me all the drugs. Bring me the drugs.
She's also like, listen, all the drugs you were taking, your husband was taking, give them all to me so we can make sure that there was some reason that this amphetamine was in your husband's system. Like not necessarily he was taking speed, but that it was in some other medication he was taking.
Yeah. So that she's like, might as well just get all the information we can. Late at night, Will and Alicia, which we will talk about that scene more in a moment. Later at night, Miss Connolly like just kind of like shows up at the office and is like, hey, I shouldn't be here. Like, I have a family, but Newberry Heights.
Bro, that was so weird. It's like, I understand being like clandestine, cloak and dagger, but just to say 2 words and walk out, that doesn't help me, lady. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You came all the way down here just to say 2 words?
Well, and then
you give me something.
Alicia's like, what does that mean? She's like, you better find out. Bye.
I know you think you're helping, but
this could have been a phone call.
Now I'm gonna have to pull up on you. Is what Alicia
said.
said.
She like literally stalks this lady. And it's like the woman is out playing with her kid. It's like, how old? Like, not even a hi, not even a hello. It's just like, how old's the kid? It's like, whoa. Okay.
Listen, turnabout is fair play. You did it to me, I do it to you. You come upon me in a weird place, I'm gonna come upon you in your weird place. So you come on my turf, I'm gonna come on your turf and shock you. All right.
That's fair. That's fair. Through the investigation about this Newberry Heights, they find out that this was a near miss from another train that had similar issues. Similar, again, we are not train people, but
Not at all.
similar mechanical issues that the train in the crash had. And Alicia learns that, like, even though this standard upgrade happened, there is another thing that would have had to have been upgraded. The pressure sensor would need to have been replaced. And this causes the whole case to be turned around because they were focusing on overtime instead of focusing on, like, maybe this is just a mechanical issue, faulty equipment. So they changed their whole strategy in this case. Then they bring back to Mr. Eldridge for a deposition, and he's like, yeah, like this would happen. And Alicia's like, yeah, but what about Newberry Heights? And he's like, what? Excuse me?
This
What?
this is everybody's ears pricked up because everybody
What?
it was like the guy's like, you say what now? Who what height? What?
What?
My height? Oh, I'm 5'11". How about you? What? My
What?
height? You said? My height?
It's like I wasn't there. I didn't go like investigate. I was in the office all day. And later, Alicia, again with her attention to detail. First of all, I don't know why this man was wearing his sign-in badge when he was giving a deposition,
Right.
but he was. And Alicia was like, "Oh, if you have a badge, then there's records of when you came in and when you left."
Yeah, I mean this because obviously the other side knows that they're onto something
Yeah.
because Patty shows up to the deposition when with Alicia is deposing Eldridge. So we know at that point that the other side's like, let me go along just in case something goes wrong because we know that this is where the soft spot of our case is. So
Yes.
that should have told them something like, okay, so we know we're on the right track here.
Ha, right track.
I didn't even try. Like, see how genius I am. I didn't even try to make that joke. It just came out my mouth.
So they have to get a court order for these security records. And this again is classic Will. Like he not only he's gonna call, but since he can't get somebody on the phone, the man is gonna run to the courthouse to get a court order for the security records. Classic.
I'm just gonna go pull up on him. I'm just like, what's up, Judge?
Yeah, I need this court order. They get the records and they realize there's something interesting. The check-in and checkouts of Mr. Eldridge and Miss Connolly are only a minute apart from each other. And then randomly, they both know that there's a hotel across the street, which was like, how do you know that, Will? How do you know that, Alicia?
I feel like Will for sure knows where all the no-tell motels are in Chicago. Will, well, from what we learned of Will, it seems like Will knows all the hot spots to get a quickie in. Okay.
Yeah. So they put it together that these two must have been having an affair. And really, Mrs. Connolly's testimony is really only going to be the way that they're going to win this case for these widows, these wives. And so she has to go back to the house, talk to Miss Connolly, and convince her to testify. And this is kind of like a turntables have turned heart-wrenching moral ethical situation for Alicia because she's having to expose another woman's story as much as she didn't like that being done to her.
Yeah, I love that. I love the moment where she's in the house and we see the baby. And we're like, oh, so how long ago was that baby born? How long ago did you have this affair with Eldridge? Oh, okay. Meanwhile, the husband's just like coming in like, I got the baby. Like, like if I was Alicia, I would have like turned the screws up on this kind of like, you know, that baby looks an awful lot like your coworker. Isn't that funny? He
Or
kind of
like,
got Eldridge's nose, don't you think, Miss Conley? Huh?
it's a little weird that he doesn't really like his dad. Like,
Oh, that's
he's really not
weird.
there.
Like, hell, something's amiss here. I wonder what it could be. What do you think, Miss Connolly?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She definitely gave her like the eyes, and and Mrs. Connolly's like, listen, it's not just me here, it's my husband, the other kids, the baby. Like she basically told Alicia
Yeah,
without telling Alicia.
she definitely told herself.
Like, hey. And later, this is like really bothering Alicia, and later she ends up talking to Grace about it. I was like, why is Grace your therapist in this situation? But
And Grace is like, F them kids. Do what you gotta do, Mom.
exactly. Like, you have to do
F
your
that other
job.
family.
It's very,
Screw them.
weird. But they have to go back to court and like basically reveal what they've learned in these 3 days. And they're like, there's just one other piece of information we need to do. And the judge is like, great, let's have this an open deposition in court. Like, you can get this information, but you're gonna have to do it in front of all of us. And so Alicia has to call this woman to the stand in front of everyone else and ask her like, where were you on this night?
And this
What?
was the one day that Mrs. Connolly's husband decided to come and support. Decided that, he just wanted to be there for his wife. And this is the day that she's in court and gets called out like this. No, it's not true. He wasn't there. It's hard to see. But all of Mrs. Connolly's coworkers now know that she and Mr. Eldridge are, bumping uglies, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So this is getting closer to a trial. They're not necessarily like, it's not a dismissed case by any means, but there's no like verdict at this moment. But they're getting closer. And I really think for like Alicia, this was hard because we see there's a long like sequence of her looking at Mrs. Connolly and like looking at Miss Connolly crying and like asking herself like kind of just acknowledging and trying to sympathize with her. But I feel like Alicia was in the trolley problem of womanhood. Is like, do I help this one woman with this one story, or do I help these 3 women with this story? And she chose to
What will
like,
serve the greater good.
yeah, to serve the 3 women. And it has to be like a really hard. I had a lot of thoughts. I was like, the patriarchy makes women turn against women. I was all like all over the place. But I think I've landed on this is the trolley problem of womanhood for Alicia.
Well, it's also odd how sympathetic, and I don't want to say it's odd. It's an interesting thing how sympathetic Alicia is
Yeah.
to Mrs. Connolly, given the fact that she's basically the Mr. Connolly in this situation, where she has sympathy for Mrs. Connolly, but she is on the other end of that situation right now. So I'm surprised that she wouldn't take some of her anger and frustration out on Mrs. Connolly and be like, well, you were the one that put yourself in this position, so I don't see why you're all upset about it. Like, you made your bed, now lay in it. I'm surprised she didn't give that kind of fury in this moment. So it was a very interesting thing for Alicia to struggle with in this moment here.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. And then it's like, if you weren't paying attention to the details, you might not have picked that up. You know what I mean? Like it's there, but subtly there.
I'm surprised that we didn't get a scene of like Glenn Childs sliding up
Like
next to Alicia,
around the corner.
So it's like, so Alicia. I mean, that's kind of what is the guy's name? Tice Welliver. That's kind of his vibe. Like,
yeah.
So Alicia, I noticed you had to out a affair that someone had. So I know
How
that
does it feel?
You were crapping on me for doing the same thing to you. So I'm just wondering how you feel now. Like, I'm just surprised you didn't get like that type of scene.
Or even just like them passing each other in the hallway and their positions switch. Like no conversation,
Yeah.
but it's just like them turning tables.
That's really stylistic.
Yeah. In the end, the widows do get a deal and an apology. They get money more than their 10 years pension and 80 cents on the dollar. We don't know what the actual number is, but Will seems okay with it. Alicia is the one who asks for the apology. She didn't ask, she demanded an apology in that situation. Yep. So we do get to see those 3 women be happy and, content at the end of all of this.
As happy as they can be.
I mean, yeah, outside of losing their husbands. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah. But let's talk about all of this. We had a lot of interaction between Will and Alicia. We had a lot of late nights together. We had a lot of staying looking through records. We had Alicia telling Will that she liked to see him pitch. What kind of sentence was that? I was like, that is a loaded sentence. That is
Will's like, I'll pitch it, you can catch it, Alicia. You know what I'm saying, girl? I pitch, you catch. Hey, I'm down. Ain't nothing but a word, Alicia. Ain't nothing but a word.
Yeah, it was like you could they turned up the chemistry big time.
There was a lot of tension in the sexual variety in their interactions in this moment. Because they were talking about Eldridge and Connolly, and they're like, yeah, they're the last ones in the office a lot, kind of like we are now.
Yeah, and then
Will just lets it hang in the air. He just lets it hang like that. He's just like just that silence for like a good 3 seconds. And Alicia, I think Alicia's thinking about it. Because I mean, this is basically an invitation to go do things. And Alicia's like, I should get home. I should go home. I should go now. And Will's like, all right, fine,
Will's
whatever.
like, yeah, I should go too. You're right. That's how it should go.
Totally, yeah. That's definitely what I wanted to happen here, is that we both go home
You
separately.
read that right. You picked up the
Yeah,
vibes. And
yeah, that's definitely
earlier,
what I wanted to happen. No, I definitely didn't want to go screw. Maybe in the office.
yeah, it's definitely something that I want to have happen. Like I want these two to get together, you know? Like
It, it also shows an interesting side to Will as well, because Will is the one that's kind of throwing this out there, and it's kind of soon, I think, for him to be throwing this out there, which kind of lends some credence to what we've heard other people say about Will. He's a little bit of a cad, he's a little bit of a playboy. Something that kind of throws credence into that way. That Will maybe isn't as, forthright as we are led to believe.
he's
That
not
Will's just helping out a buddy.
as
That Will just
good.
is helping Alicia out. Yeah. So I mean, he's not as good. He's not the good Will.
Guys,
Maybe like he is that part of his reasoning for bringing Alicia in was to
make up for lost time.
yeah, definitely, because they talk about they reminisce, right, about
Mhm.
their college days. She's like, oh, I really liked watching you pitch. He's like, oh. So he's like, I think he sees it as a way. He's like, oh,
Okay,
did you?
but
Okay.
like as a baseball, like who says that lie? Like, who says like if you're saying that because you have no idea about baseball and you're watching the like she knew
I
what she
mean,
was
I
saying. Like she knew.
do you think so?
I don't know.
I think it was kind of
I
innocent.
don't
Like
know.
I liked watching. Maybe he was just a pitcher, and
I mean,
like
it was.
maybe he couldn't hit worth a damn. What was you going to say? I like watching you hit the ball.
I
Maybe he was
watched
bad
you
at it.
play. Like I liked watching you play. I loved going to the games.
I
I
love
but
watching you pitch.
like
Maybe he was a pitcher. You don't
he was
know.
a
Like
pitcher. He
I
was.
like
Yeah.
watching you pitch.
Yeah.
I mean, that was his job. Okay,
It's
you
just
act like Will now. You're taking things out of context.
it was just I don't know. It just hit me
But
as a weird
that
line.
definitely raised Will's eyebrows. He's like, oh, you
Yeah.
like watching me pitch, huh?
Yeah, because it's
You can
like
watch me do some other
I
stuff right now. I'll tell you that.
because she chose the word like I liked watching you. Like it
I mean,
doesn't have
listen,
to be pitch. Like I think his ears turned off after that. It was like
but I don't think Will needs a lot of like provocation to open the door. He's like,
no.
oh, really?
Yeah.
You want to reminisce about old times? What about some other old stuff we used to do? How about that?
What about that one night when we were late in the office at the fancy school that we went to? But and also
Mhm.
earlier when Patty was in the deposition before she's like trying to talk to Alicia and like try to get in Alicia's head before this deposition because Patty is there to like diffuse any situations and redirect whatever comes out of Eldridge's mouth here. But he's like, oh, so you're Will's new one.
Mm.
You must be a
Listen,
challenge for him. And I was like, what?
and listen, Alicia was not for play, okay? Because she shut that down real fast. Like, okay, listen, I see what you're trying to do here. Like, you're trying to get in my head. I'm gonna try to get in your head. Blah blah blah. Like, let's just do the damn deposition and like forget all the other formalities. She says, over the past 7 months, I have been vaccinated against all of this. I said, wow, like the amount of connotation that word takes on now, and
Yes.
in comparison to 2009, I was like, that really tripped me out. I was like, that's the fact she said the word vaccinated. I was like, that's such a weird word now.
I think we have a Will Jr. on our hands here. Carrie, in his search
Mhm.
for getting a new assistant, literally brings in like I don't know his perfect date is Marnie Compton. Marnie, has been at a big law firm, gone to a good school, was part of the Peace Corps, or did like some sort of volunteering work. And
You
Carrie
know,
is like flirting the whole time while
Gary,
he's trying to like interview her.
she talks about the work she did for Habitat for Humanity in Tijuana. He's like, Peace Corps, Belize over here. He's like, oh yeah, like we got something to relate on, girl. Don't never mind how hot you are. Like we can get into some other stuff. And now listen, do we think that because as we remember, Gillian Jacobs was
Yeah,
the assistant in the pilot. Do we think like the Community got like picked up
I
for
think
series and
so.
she was like too busy to come on the show again?
I mean, maybe, maybe not. I do think that this is like a good. It's coming in the like fifth episode, so it may be a good way to show the relationship between Carrie and Alicia, because they've had like that one interaction when they work together on that one case, but they haven't really like done anything here. And you can kind of see like they're playing with each other,
Yeah.
not like that, but like they're playing back.
Not not in the Will and Alicia way.
Yeah, not like that.
We're not pitching and catching over here.
Like, but they're making this like a fun competition type thing, and
Yeah,
Alicia reads the situation right off the bat. She's like,
yeah.
she asks Marnie, or says to Marnie, "I really like your boots. Where'd you get them?" And Marnie answers Carrie, and Carrie's
Yeah,
like,
like just looks at Carrie, answers the same. Like, okay, we see. I really enjoyed the interplay between Alicia and Carrie. This is almost like our D plot of the
yeah,
episode. We
yeah,
spent like less than 5 minutes total on this, but it was a great way to like look in on the relationship between Carrie and Alicia while not having to spend a lot of time on it. So I think they really economized their time right in that situation.
yeah. They had a second candidate come in, which is like an older lady who was a secretary, not an assistant, because they were secretaries back in her day. And she has a lot to say about Alicia's hair, and she wants to smoke and everything. And Carrie's like, "I thought you would appreciate someone more aligned with your
Yo,
interests or something."
I when that interview first started, I thought it was like a Alicia candidate that she brought in, but then to find out that it was actually Carrie who brought that one in, he's like, I thought you would have a lot in common. It was really just like punking Alicia, and that was so fun. And the lady's like, I like your hair this way because when you were in those interviews, it was so dowdy. It's like, oh my gosh, so hilarious. Loved it. Loved that whole sequence of events.
It was good. I was waiting for Alicia to bring someone in, but it turns out
Mhm.
Alicia was doing her own like recruitment just by existing, because at the end of the episode we see Patty's assistant who had disappeared in the episode prior to the end here, and she walks in for an interview, and you had recognized this assistant.
Yeah, because we had seen the assistant throughout the episode, but she wasn't doing a lot. I like when we first started the episode and they were in that conference room, I saw her and I was like, "Oh my goodness. Is that who I think it is?" I said, "Is that Sonequa Martin Green?" And I was like, I had I had forgotten or had no idea that she was in our universe. I said, is she going to talk? Does she have a speaking role, or is this like a before I get famous? So I was just kind of a background actor. She has, I think she mentioned, she says she apologized for Patty at a certain point. I think right after the "Oh, you're Will's new one" thing.
Yeah.
She apologizes for Patty or whatever. And like you said, at the end, they walk in and she wants to interview for the assistant position. So like, when I saw her the episode, I was like, oh my god, this is cool. So I remember like the big things that Sneaker Martin Green for me is I think which I think are her biggest things right now is Walking Dead. She was Sasha. She was a great part of that show.
Yeah.
She was such a fun character. Also in Star Trek Discovery, she is the main character. She's Captain. I think her name is Captain Michael Burnham. I think in that series, and she does a great job on this. I don't watch Discovery that much. My wife is more obsessed with that show, so I've seen some of her in that show. She does a great job in that show. So I was flabbergasted. Like, oh my gosh, I had no, like, I had either forgotten or, she doesn't play that big a part in the good universe or whatever. So I was very shocked and surprised to see her sitting there at that table. I was like, oh my god, that's so cool.
Just
I mean,
goes,
I think we're gonna have that a lot in this
yeah.
journey we're gonna take. So it's like, oh my god, I had no idea she was in this.
It's like everybody starts somewhere. And I'm sure this is not
For
where she
sure.
started, but this is,
Right. Yeah.
somewhere. The other big thing happening at the firm, besides trying to find a new assistant for Carrie and Alicia, was the fact that Stern is retiring. So right now, the name of this firm is Stern Lockhart
Lockhart.
Gardner. Oh my gosh, my brain. Stern Lockhart Gardner, and Stern is retiring. So this is like opening up room for some new partner to come in. So Diane puts Kalinda on a task and is like, "Hey, do you think you could like investigate this guy named Malcolm Overby?" And she's like, "What? Why? Like, why do you want me to do this? What am I looking for?" And Diane's answer is security, like, and stable, like stability. Like, he's stable. Obviously, Malcolm is in the running to take Stern's place here, but it kind of puts Kalinda in an interesting position because Diane is like telling her to keep this confidential, and Kalinda is saying like, "Hey, we've got this train case that I'm going to be working on." So earlier in the episode, when Alicia calls Kalinda and is like, "Hey, can you look into this drug test?" Kalinda has to say, no, Diane put me on Schiffer and Marks. And this is like a weird red flag. Put some, Kalinda doesn't like having to have to
Mhm.
do that in this situation.
I mean, the Schiffer and Marks cloud that has been looming over this season so far rears its head again. I'm just like, when are we going to get to Schiffer and Marks? Is this going to be just a thing that you reference a lot and we never get to? I'm just wondering when we're going to see more of Schiffer and Marks, whatever that is. But yeah, Kalinda, I think Kalinda doesn't have a problem lying in general. I just think it's annoying for her to have
Yeah.
to lie
Well,
at this moment.
like, I feel like she likes, or not likes lying, but she has to lie so much outside of the office. Like, inside of the office should be a place where she doesn't have to do that as much.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so it's just not sitting well. But she does a classic Kalinda investigation, like buddies up to coworkers of this guy, crashes a party. She also catches Malcolm and Diane kissing in the street. Like,
Bruh. So,
what?
Diane, I think
Messy, messy Diane.
Diane got herself caught here. Like, you can't put Kalinda on a case and then be
Yeah.
out kissing this guy. Kalinda is an A1 investigator. She's going to see you. So, I mean, maybe while you have Kalinda investigating, maybe you steer clear of public meetings with this guy.
Well, and it wasn't like she was in her car and Kalinda watched Malcolm walk out of his house and then go in and assumably, I thought it was a kiss Diane, and then they have some words and they leave. Or Kalinda goes, Diane has a boyfriend.
Love that.
It was
That
so
was so
fun.
good. I mean, listen, this Overby guy just does not hold a candle to Zaddy Kurt.
No, I
Who,
know.
those of us that know
Yeah.
the journey for Diane, who
Yeah.
Zaddy Kurt is, doesn't hold a candle to that guy, obviously, because we do see in one of these outings that Kalinda is on, we do see she does get to meet Malcolm face to face, and he does hit on her, gives her his card, like, hey, you can use this for whatever,
Okay, but
whatever
also
you want.
this is where how dated is the show, because it's like, if I were to give you my card, would you do anything
My
with
card,
it?
yeah.
And I was like,
It's not like nowadays, like, give me your phone. Let me put
yeah,
a number in your phone.
yeah, yeah. It was like,
That would be the thing now. Let me give you my Snapchat. Like that would be the come on now. Like now it's like, I'll give you my card.
yeah,
So
it
weird.
was so. And then he's like, you could use it however you want. I was like, okay, yeah,
Eye roll.
yeah. But so Kalinda has to go back and tell Diane, like, look, this guy's not it. He's non-exclusive. He's in pursuit of other options. The firm can do better.
This was so weird to me because it was. I kind of wish Kalinda had just come out and been like, I know you wanted to use me for finding out whether or not this guy is, having relations with other people, which is weird to me that Diane would even put Kalinda on this in the first place and misuse company time like this.
Well, do you think that was, or do you think it was to see if he could be partner? Because like maybe they were like seeing each other or whatever, and it was like, hey, I can get you a gig as a partner at my law firm, but she needed to make sure that he would be vetted and be accepted by Will, and so she put Kalinda on it. Kalinda finds out that they're dating, so Kalinda changes her motive to like, he's not good for the firm, but he's also like not good for Diane. I don't think this was in a like girls move, because knowing Kalinda, she keeps this information in the back of her pocket for a reason. But I don't know if Diane, I wouldn't put it past Diane to put Kalinda on a boyfriend investigation.
Yeah.
But in this case, I think they might have been seeing each other. I don't know. It
It
could go
was so
either way.
weird.
It's never explicitly said.
Yeah, I mean, I know Diane would want her boo thing to be a partner with her because she knows that she would have power in that
Yeah.
way, because it would be her and Boo thing against Will if there was ever a power struggle. So that, and they definitely get into that type of dynamics, about who has power in the law firm as we get further into the seasons. There's a lot of that comes into play. So that wouldn't surprise me, but I guess you're right. This could be a legitimate, like, is he good for the law firm? But then when she finds out no, he's a cheater, then I guess you would be kind of soured of bringing that person in.
Yeah. And Kalinda uses this to her advantage. She brings up to Diane in the middle of this investigation, like, hey, do you know how much you pay your jury consultants? uh, uh, uh.
A callback from last episode where we find out that Kalinda knows that they make $100,000 for 3 months, and she uses that information in this episode to be like, you pay them $100,000 for 3 months, I get a quarter of that. So I'm obviously very good at my job because I found out that your boy is playing around on you. So maybe I should get some more money.
Well, and what we learned in the last episode, the jury consultants really didn't add much value to the situation.
Right,
Well, Kalinda's out there doing everything she can for Diane and the firm. So she
doing
gets
the
it.
dirty work for the firm.
Yeah, she gets to renegotiate at the end, which I was like, yeah, way to go, Kalinda. And I also appreciate the fact that this conversation came up because, again, thinking in 2009 terms, like we are not in a salary transparency situation. Like when you're applying for jobs, there are not salaries listed on job descriptions. So the fact that she like went in there and was like, hey, I deserve more money, it was pretty cool.
Well, listen, if I did my math right, I mean she gets paid 100 grand every year. Like that's her salary. I was
Yeah.
like, man, all right. Like I said last episode, let me find out how to become an investigator because I can take pictures too. Okay, I can follow people too. You know what I mean? Shoot.
That's JAYR10085
Right.
on Twitter.
For real. You need an investigator? Hire me. I'll follow whoever you want around. As long as you pay my expenses and you pay my 100K a year salary, I'm there for you.
I'll organize the notes.
Yes, I'll follow whoever you need around and I will take pictures of whatever you want.
All right. Well, there's one more thing we have to talk about from this episode, and I saved it for last because it's my favorite, but also not my favorite. I love hate. I hate love Jackie. Jackie in this episode, I really, really want to like.
She was a turd this episode for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Overstepping all the boundaries in this episode.
She starts off the episode saying, hey, it's Peter's birthday. We should take the kids to go see Peter in jail. And Alicia's like, yeah, that's my call. Like, we're going to do this right. Alicia has a point. Like, we are taking kids to jail. We need to think about how we are going to, like, put context around the situation.
Yeah, but this isn't like, jail. This is Club Fed.
Sure.
This is like,
but it's their father.
This is like a festival of fairgrounds. They got a room with a bunch of picnic tables around. It's not like you going into the two-sided glass and you got to put your hand up on the glass.
Yeah, this is not Rikers Island by any.
Yeah. I mean, but it's still jail.
Well,
it is still jail. You're right.
Like,
they're seeing their father in jail uniform.
Yeah. Later we hear Grace say, like, I like seeing dad in suits. Like, she doesn't want to see dad in a jumpsuit. Jackie goes to visit Peter and refers to Alicia only as her or she. And Peter calls her out on it, which I was kind of like, okay, point for Peter. But then
see, that's what Peter does, though.
Yeah,
I
know.
That's Peter's thing.
I know.
Like, he makes you like him a little bit. Like oh my god, like I want to hate you, but like then you say stuff like you stick up for Alicia this way, and I'm like, all right, like you got 1 point in this one.
Peter
He's still like a negative. He's like a -8.
He's got one.
You got -8 Peter points, but this one Peter point brought you a -7. So keep it good. You might get to a 0.
Yeah, you're still underwater here, buddy. But Jackie is like, hey, so Alicia's been working a lot of late nights. And Peter's like, yeah, I warned her about Diane. She's like, it's not Diane, it's Will. And I was like,
first of all, how does Jackie know this?
I don't know.
Is Alicia that forthcoming with what she's doing, like at the law firm to Jackie? Like that's Alicia's fault if she's doing that. She shouldn't be like giving Jackie all this information for her to go spew to her father.
And Jackie cannot leave well enough alone. So while Alicia is doing a deposition, the second deposition with Mr. Mechanical Man, her phone rings. Okay, her phone rings, and we're like, oh, and we know it's the Twilight Zone, so we know it's Jackie. Mm-hmm. And she calls her back, doesn't answer. Jackie has taken the kids to go see Peter at jail, and just on her own. And you can kind of see like Zach is like, this is kind of cool, and Grace is like, I'm not too sure about this situation. And then not only does she do that, later, the next day, when Alicia's getting ready for work, she's like, that's really fancy. Like, also, I took the kids to see Peter for his birthday. I tried to phone you.
That was almost like a so I went to the store, I got some bread, milk, eggs, I took the kids to see Peter in jail, I made sure to clean out the bathroom, clean up a little bit, like, she just kinda, like, throws out there casually, like, "Oh, by the way, I took the kids to jail the other day." It's like, "No biggie, no biggie." After she's, subtly throwing jabs out there to how Alicia's dressing, like, basically, like, "What you dressing up for Will for? Like, what's going on there?
Okay,
Like, you dress up for somebody special?"
and she was wearing a dress. Okay, the dress had a low back, but she put on a sweater. Like, and she can wear whatever she wants. She's a woman. Anywho,
She's a woman.
she's a woman. Yeah,
I
but
wish I could pull sound clips and just throw that that out. She's a woman.
yeah, but Jackie's all
Uh,
like, the kids were great, they were perfect, everything's fine. And Alicia's like, that's not the point. The point is,
mhm.
you're going to respect me as a mother, or you can leave. And I was like,
Respect my
yeah,
authority.
yeah.
Respect my authority.
And we've really seen like Alicia's getting her confidence back here. Like, if she's, not really, we're not really seeing it in the courtroom yet, but we are seeing it in front
Mhm.
of the court of Jackie. And she's really sticking up for herself the best she can. And I did appreciate this moment as well because Jackie's like, I'm doing the best I can. And Alicia's like, welcome to the club. So
Yeah,
they're both
like,
really
bruh,
stealing, but
Jackie,
it's
why are you being
dysfunctional.
a like, I understand Peter is your little boy, like, your little mother
Yeah.
boy, but how can you not see Alicia's side in this? How can you not be on Alicia's team here? Like, Alicia did nothing to you, Jackie. Like, why are you acting so crazy toward Alicia?
Do you feel, and I can't remember if this is true, so, but do you think she might feel guilty and is trying to like right the wrong of like trying to overcompensate by making things okay, making everything all right in the only way that she knows how, in terms of like she knows Peter better than Alicia. So she's like, I know the kids will be okay if they see their dad on his birthday. So I'm going to try to take care of that because I feel guilty that I raised this man that did this to this woman. And
I could see
I
that, but I
don't
just
know. I
wish
don't know if
that
that's true.
yeah, I just wish that she would be a little more, appreciative
Yeah.
of what Alicia's
Oh
going
my
through because
gosh.
it really doesn't seem like she does.
This entire season, I will tell you, listeners, I'm sorry, but I do not like Jackie for the rest, like for a long time. So I'm just telling you. Yeah. And
I mean,
Alicia,
she's not. They don't have us rooting for Jackie in many
no,
situations so far.
no. Alicia goes to visit Peter in jail, spur of the moment, just on a whim,
Just popping up on you in jail
popping
like you
up.
do.
Yeah. And Peter goes, right in about working late nights with Will. And Alicia's like, look, one thing I've learned is like people aren't everything that they're, that they seem to be in this.
Peter.
Yeah, Peter. And Peter's like, I love you. You're so beautiful, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, that is not what like, he still is not getting the point here. He still doesn't get it.
But I did love that Alicia can appreciate, like she says, this is a pretty ironic situation that you're sitting here talking to me about, your fear that I am, is it even called cheating on you at the moment? Are we even together right now? Like, I don't even know. It's very ironic that you're bringing up the fact that I could be having relations with another man, like that you're sitting in here, and part of that is because you decided to cheat on me
Yeah.
with other women. So that's very ironic. I love that she calls that out. Like, I would be like, I look at Peter like the audacity
Yeah.
that you have,
Yeah.
the unmitigated gall
Yeah.
that you display to actually question me on the fact that if I'm having sex with another man, and what if I am? What if I am stepping Will? What if I am catching when he's pitching? Like, what of it, Peter? You have no room to criticize me, okay?
And
For
then
catching this man's pitches.
it's like another why, like another poor me, another whiny Peter situation because he's like, you have a lot of time to think about things in here. And Alicia's like, yeah, I have a lot of time to think about things out there too. Like,
You think,
we're
buddy?
all thinking. And he ends with this whole, all like, I know I did wrong. I take responsibility, but don't give up on
Well,
me. Don't give up
well,
on
no,
me.
because he was like, I understand that, I let the power get to me. And Alicia's like, no,
Yeah.
you're not gonna blame it on your
Yeah.
power. You're not gonna blame it on anything else. This was you, buddy. So then Peter's like, oh, okay, yeah, it was me. It was me for sure.
Like,
It was
yeah,
definitely
he still doesn't get it. But
doesn't get it.
yep, that was episode 5. It was a good mix for me. I enjoyed this one.
Very good episode. Yeah, very good episode. A lot of things going on, but I never felt like we got bogged down in any particular storyline. I felt like it moved at
Would
a
you
very
say
good pace.
like a train?
Yeah, the trains were running on every track on time. Things were going the right way. But a lot of train stuff in this episode, but I enjoyed it. I really loved it. And I think this first season is going extremely well. I've thoroughly enjoyed every single episode so far.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. It's cool to see how well this is held up as a show.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. I mean, I even saying that, I love some of the outdated
Right.
technology, some of the outdated, like we see Alicia on her BlackBerry, a couple of times this episode. It's like, when phones used to have that, just that one solitary thing where you had the keyboard, you had the screen, you had the physical keyboard, whereas, we just have now this just block of screen where we can that we use. We've evolved from the BlackBerry to the flip phone. Now we just have a blank screen. But all that is fun. Marissa,
Yeah.
do you want to tell the people where they can find you,
Oh,
where they can keep up with you, where they can find you on the interwebs, on the social medias, all that
yeah.
good stuff?
You don't need a court order. You can just go to Instagram or Threads and find me at It's Me, Marissa G. In my bios there, you can see a link of all of the other stuff that I am doing around town, the internet town. But what about you, Jason? Where can people find you?
Right now you could find me here, of course. We last week we finished up the perfect match coverage over on Netflix. Messy show with a weird ending. So if you were into that, you can always go back and check that out. It's all done, thankfully, but you can check it out. Typically you can find me on the it's kind of weird because there's this show called The Perfect Match, and then I'm on a podcast called A Perfect Match that usually talks about the show Married at First Sight. That's on hiatus right now, but it'll be back soon, hopefully. But this is my big gig right now, and if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can catch me there at JAYR1085. As Marissa said earlier, if you want to hire me for investigations, taking pictures, whatever you want, I'm down. Just drop it in my inbox. Just a reminder, you want to help us out, fun and free ways. You can hit us on Apple Podcasts, leave us a review, leave us a rating. Spotify, leave us a rating. YouTube, hit those thumbs down there. Leave a YouTube comment if you like. If you want a feedback to be shown on the podcast, you can hit us up at thegoodpodfeedback@gmail.com. Marissa, if you don't have anything else,
No,
until next time. All right, until next time, stay good.